3 years ago, I went to the doctor with a cold that wouldn't go away for 5 weeks. He looked at my tests and said, "It's your age, Dolores. The immune system weakens. It's normal." I walked out of his office and started crying right there on the street, not because of the cold, but because I knew he didn't tell me the truth. Not because he wanted to hide it, but because he didn't know it himself. The real cause of my illness didn't fit into any medical report. It was called loneliness. And today I'm going to tell you something doctors don't say out loud. Loneliness is not just emotional pain. It is a physical disease, measurable, destructive, and, most importantly, reversible. Stay with me. What you're about to hear took me 3 years to understand. My name is Dolores. I'm 69. My children left within 1 year. Marta moved to Barcelona. Pablo went to live with his wife in another city. My husband had passed away 4 years before that. My friends faded into their own silence. Each one had her own. I was left alone in an apartment that still smelled like someone else's life. Marta's perfume, Jose's tobacco, though he had been gone for a long time. I kept telling myself, "You're an adult, you'll handle this. Children grow up, that's how it should be." But my body didn't listen. 6 months later, I started getting sick. Nothing serious, no hospitals, just something all the time. One cold after another, knee pain that had never been there before, exhaustion after a short walk to the store, so strong I had to lie down. I went to one doctor, then another, then a third. All 3 said the same thing: age. At night I would lie in the dark and feel the silence of the apartment pressing on my chest, physically, like a weight placed right on my ribs. And I thought, maybe I'm just fading away. Not from illness, just like a fire that no one feeds anymore. I didn't know then how accurate that metaphor was. The turning point didn't happen by chance. It happened when it became unbearable. It was an ordinary Tuesday. I was sitting at the table, staring at a cup of cold coffee, and suddenly realized I couldn't remember the last time someone had spoken to me in person. Not on the phone, not through a screen, but face to face. I started counting. It had been 9 days. 9 days without a single human voice next to me. I stood up, got dressed, and went to the library, simply because there were people there. I didn't take a single book. I just sat among people and breathed. And there, in the quiet of the library, I began to think differently for the first time. This is not sadness. This is not personality. This is something happening in my body, something that must have an explanation. The explanation came, and it shocked me. Our body, the ancient part we inherited from our ancestors, cannot distinguish between physical danger and social isolation. Millions of years ago, being alone meant death. Without a tribe, a human could not survive. And today, even if we are alone in a warm apartment with a full refrigerator, the brain still triggers the alarm. It releases cortisol, the stress hormone, into the bloodstream. Not once, every day, every night, month after month. I read this and thought, that's it. That's why the cold doesn't go away. That's why my knees hurt. That's why I'm so tired. It wasn't age. It was my body, living for 3 years in a state of hidden stress, quietly burning from the inside. But the most important thing I read was not that. The most important thing was this. It is reversible. Here's what I didn't expect. The first step was the hardest, not because it was difficult, but because it required me to say out loud what I had denied for 3 years. I called Marta, not to complain. I don't know how to complain. I just said it directly. Marta, I'm not okay. Not in pain, just not okay. I am very alone. There was a long pause. Mom, she finally said, and her voice made my throat tighten. Why have you been silent for so long? I didn't know the answer. Now I do. Because I thought silence was dignity, that not burdening others was the right thing, that loneliness should be endured, like bad weather. But silence about loneliness is not dignity. It is slow destruction, quiet, polite, acceptable, but still destruction. I won't say everything changed after that call. It didn't. Marta still lives in Barcelona. Pablo still lives his life. Nothing broke, nothing got fixed, but something shifted inside me. I signed up for watercolor classes at the community center, not for painting, for people. Twice a week, 2 hours surrounded by voices, names, stories about grandchildren, recipes for pies. The first time I went, I thought, this is ridiculous. I'm almost 70, painting flowers with strangers. But when Consuelo, a small, quick woman with silver earrings, told me after class, Dolores, you have a beautiful sense of blue, I walked home smiling the entire way. It wasn't about painting. It was a signal to my nervous system. You are not alone. You are safe. You matter. 8 months later, I did my tests again. The doctor looked at them longer than usual. Dolores, what are you taking? Your inflammation markers have dropped significantly. Nothing new, I said. But something changed? Yes, I said. I stopped being alone. He nodded like someone hearing something he doesn't quite believe but cannot deny. The colds disappeared, my knees calmed down, the morning exhaustion that had greeted me every day for 3 years was gone. Not because I found a miracle supplement, but because I gave my body what it needs to function, the presence of another human being. Let me ask you something. When was the last time someone held your hand for no reason? If you're watching this in silence right now and there is no one next to you, I want you to know this. This is not weakness. This is not personality. This is not something you should endure in silence, saying, I'm fine. This is a signal from your body, loud, persistent, measurable. And there is an answer. Not in a pharmacy, not in a pill, but in someone like Consuelo with silver earrings who tells you that you feel the color blue beautifully. In a cafe across the street where they know your name. in a hand you take, or that takes yours. Life doesn't return all at once. It returns drop by drop, but it does return.